This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 141. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guests are Ryan Darfler and Dusty Showers.
Find out what's important to you personally and what kind of tugs at your heartstring, and get involved with that somehow.
You just heard from Dusty Showers, repeat guest from one of our earliest episodes. He lives in the greater Tampa, Florida area, so we just wanted to catch up with him on Hurricane Irma, and he shares some really important information on wild animal care. So we're super excited to have Dusty Showers on. But first, Ryan Darfler talks about his experience transporting some amazing animals out of the Houston area to help with the relief efforts from Hurricane Harvey. And he helps out with a huge team, Houston Pets Alive, Austin Pets Alive, his own rescue called Mad Dog Rescue, the Milo Foundation, Muttville Senior Dog Rescue, the San Francisco SPCA, and Jameson Animal Rescue Ranch. Ryan talks a little bit about how this trip from Houston to the San Francisco Bay Area got started in the first place. If you want to learn more about today's episode, you can go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/141.
Just because the media cycle has ended for Houston and it shifted to Irma and now Maria, Houston is still in an ongoing crisis. And just because the media has shifted away doesn't mean it's over. They have months and months and months of recovery efforts ahead of them. The animal side of the disaster is still ongoing. There's rescues ongoing. A number of the days that we were there, we saw 30 animals brought in from different animal rescues in the southern regions of the Houston area. And then another day we saw close to 100 brought into the Best Friends shelter at NRG Arena, which is all the lost or stray animals. This is not over. Probably the hardest thing to see were these people coming into the shelter, this emergency shelter, and owners surrendering their animals. And it wasn't out of, not loving their animal or not providing for their animal. It was the fact that they couldn't because they could barely provide for themselves.
How did all this come about initially? Did they reach out to you? Did you have a connection in Texas?
Kind of a crazy situation. We hadn't talked to anybody with Austin Pets Alive. We knew about them because they do amazing work in making Austin a no-kill city. And they took Austin from being a pretty high youth rate down to this basically zero, which is unbelievable. And so when we saw the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey and the sheer devastation that was really unexpected for some of the parts of Houston with the flooding, we knew that we had to step up and do something. And so part of Mad Dog's mission is this disaster relief and response effort. And we do it on a local basis here. But we really felt connected to the people of Texas and what they were going through and knew we needed to step up. Luckily, I had a family member in Austin, and given just the insanity that was going on for APA, which is Austin Pets Alive, I was able to get her out there, and she was able to get into contact with them on the ground in the shelter. And, she was providing me with updates and just describing how crazy and how overwhelmed all these staff and volunteers were. And she got me into contact with one of their head people. Her name was Faith. And Faith then got me connected with Palmer. And it's actually kind of amazing. These people were calling me at, 11 or 12 o'clock at night, our time. And I realized that about halfway through the conversation that midnight my time, I was tired talking to them, but they had been up for, 20 hours at a time, working. And most of these people were volunteers and just really, out there to help the animals and try to support the people that are connected to these animals. And really their two biggest responses were we need medications, we need money. Actually, I guess it's 3 requests, but they like medications, monetary support, and also we need to get a lot of animals out here. And so Austin Pets Alive had taken in close to 2,000 dogs and 1,000 cats within a 3-day period from shelters that were affected and evacuated by the hurricane and the flooding. So they had this huge facility. It was an old abandoned grocery store that they had all these animals packed in. And these were the animals that weren't displaced necessarily from their families before the hurricane, but they were displaced from shelters and shelter organizations due to the flooding. So they told us just get down here. We just be here any day and we'll take care of you. So coincidentally with all this, Sherry Franklin with Muttville Senior Dog Rescue reached out to me and sent me a text saying, hey, I have somebody that's willing to donate a private jet. And within a matter of 24 hours, we had everything coordinated with the donated jet on the ground in Oakland, on the ground in Houston. All the contacts with APA had been worked out. And, within 48 hours, we launched and we were out there. And within about 2.5 to 3 hours on the ground, we had determined which animals we were going to be taking. We loaded them up into crates. Well, we weighed them, loaded them into crates, put them on these trucks and SUVs, and convoyed them back over to the airport in Austin. Once we arrived at the airport, we spent about 45 minutes on the ground loading all the animals in. And it's kind of insane, given the fact that we were only there for about 4 hours, that we actually got the exact number of animals we planned to get. And we didn't have room for a single animal after we packed up. I mean, this plane was to capacity in both the weight and the volume side of this thing. And so we took off, flew back to Oakland nonstop, landed, had all our rescue partners on the ground, unloaded the aircraft, and got them to their rescues. I mean, it was a whirlwind of a day, I'll tell you that much.
Normally, when you send animals out of state, you need health certificate exams and all that, but this is a crisis. So was that all waived?
We had some people on the ground when we landed that were vets to make sure that we didn't cross any legal boundaries and have to deal with them. And thankfully we didn't. And I think everybody kind of understood. And so we move into, realizing the full magnitude of this event and the updates we were receiving from Austin Pets Alive about how many continued animals they were receiving and how much assistance they needed. And we immediately began planning our second run out there to help them. And so that's the most recent one that just occurred on Sunday. We luckily had a little bit more time to plan everything out. And we got on the ground on Tuesday and started providing medical care. We isolated the animals that were going to be transported to California and started doing medical screenings. We had volunteer vets show up that were able to provide health certificates for all the animals so that during this interstate transport, we didn't have to worry about any legal ramifications. Everything was covered.
So what'd you do better the second trip that you missed on the first trip?
So the first trip was definitely a whirlwind. We were trying to get in and get out as fast as we can to not impact them and impact Austin Pets Alive or overwhelm them. We just wanted to get the animals out and get them cared for. And so with that being said, a lot of the animals we pulled were extremely sick. They hadn't been at the shelter for very long. They'd been exposed to really nasty environments and elements. And so we brought back a lot of animals that had, multiple weeks of recovery ahead of them. And most of them still do have multiple weeks of recovery ahead of them. So with that being said, we had a lesson learned from the first run was that we need to get on the ground and start medicating these animals and getting them treated for anything that could be communicable and getting them vaccinated and making sure that, we're not spreading disease between states and we're not spreading disease between animals. And we want to keep the healthy ones healthy and try to make the sick ones better. So with that being said, that big lesson learned, we were able to be on the ground 4.5 days before we had to transport. And we were able to get a lot of dogs on antibiotics. We actually worked with a bunch of partners on the ground in Houston through Houston Pets Alive to take the really kennel stress dogs that were going to be going to California and put them in temporary foster. And they were able to foster and de-kennel stress 5 of our dogs for us. That way, come transport day on Sunday, we were able to load them up and they were much happier and it was a much safer event for them. They weren't going to injure themselves en route. And so that was really the biggest lesson learned was like, we have this whole medical side that we need to cover. And that's what we did is we got on the ground and helped the animals we were going to pull for California. But in addition to that, we worked with almost all the animals in that shelter, in the emergency shelter.
So now is there a third trip planned? And are you going to just keep going as long as there's the need is there?
I guess technically we sort of had a third trip, if you will. On an interesting note, when we were out there doing work, I received a call from some of the Austin Pets Alive people in Austin, and they said, hey, we've had Renee Zellweger out here, and she's been working really low key. Nobody even realized she was volunteering there for a number of days. And they wanted to see if we'd be willing to host her up in Houston so that she could help us out. And we were totally excited about that. And we had her come up. And I got to say that Renee was probably one of the top hardest working volunteers that we saw in the shelter. She was going nonstop. I mean, everything from cleaning crates to walking dogs to doing like the nastiest laundry you could ever imagine in your life. And she did it with just being nothing but polite and amazing and just kept going. And so after we landed on Sunday, Renee really stepped up, and she actually, through commercial airline, was able to get 5 more large dogs on board an aircraft. And she herself flew out with these dogs and landed yesterday and was able to, she delivered them to us, and we hung out with her. And, it was a much more relaxing hangout, but we were there, with her for about an hour and then brought those dogs back. So I guess technically that was round 3. We got 5 more dogs, and Renee brought them for us.
We're speaking to Ryan Darfler with Mad Dog Rescue. What did you notice about the way they do animal rescue in Texas that might be similar or different from your experience?
It's hard to really comment on what they do on an everyday basis because this has really been nothing but disaster response for the past 2 weeks. All I can say is that I have a lifetime bond with the people of Texas and the people of Houston on the animal rescue side because they're quite amazing and really hardworking people. The level of dedication in Texas to these animals has been astounding, and people are coming out of the woodworks to help them. People that know nothing about rescue have been there. People that know everything about rescue have been there, and they're all working side by side without getting their egos in the way or their personal agendas to really help these animals.
Can you tell us a little bit about Mad Dog Rescue?
Yeah, absolutely. Mad Dog Rescue, we kind of launched and went live in April, so it hasn't been very long, but I can tell you we've been very active in doing a lot with a little. So it's been a great experience. I started with volunteering with the Milo Foundation out here in Point Richmond, and that's how I got my feet wet in the rescue community. And, when I first started volunteering with the Milo Foundation, I had spoke with Lynn Tingle, the founder, and I said, hey, look, I've got this background in disaster response. I had been a paramedic for almost 10 years. I had done, on the human side of things, disaster response for public health and human services. We had deployed to a number of hurricanes. And so with that being said, I went to her. I said, hey, what's the disaster response community like for animal rescue? And we came to find out that, kind of scattered and not a lot of major resources that are dedicated to it. There are some nationwide, like Best Friends. And then we also have Red Rover in Sacramento and the North Valley Animal Disaster Group up in Butte County. But there was a definite need that was highlighted in the Bay Area and especially in the East Bay. So I decided, after having multiple conversations with Lynn, to start the process of starting this rescue group. We were kind of the tip of the spear in coordinating the rescue efforts and operations and all the logistics related to it.
Are you focusing mainly on disasters, or do you also do routine animal rescue? And are you foster-based, or do you have a facility?
So Mad Dog Rescue's primary focus is on disaster response and recovery. And so when big disasters like Hurricane Harvey and Irma hit, we want to be there for them. With that being said, we also consider, euthanizing animals a disaster in itself. And so we treat that as a disaster response, and we actually respond to it. So we're 100% foster-based. We don't have a facility yet. We're hoping to get there, in a couple of years, hopefully, when we build up our base. But yes, we're 100% foster-based. We pull animals from Central Valley Rescues, and we get them adopted on a, I wouldn't say a daily basis because our numbers aren't that great. We've only been around since April, but we've done close to 30 animals, which I think is amazing for how small we are and how recently we started. But again, our primary focus during times of disaster is on disaster response.
Tell us how to get in touch with you guys, whether it's online, social media. I noticed you even have a fundraising page.
Yeah, so you can reach out to our website. It's maddogrescue.net, or find us on Facebook at Mad Dog Rescue Group. We're kind of in crunch mode right now with the 2 responses that we've done with trying to get everybody updated on what's going on and reach out on all our emails and messages and text messages. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us, Facebook message, comment. We're looking for people that are interested in helping with disaster response, whether you have experience or not. Please reach out and email us at info@maddogrescue.net for more information.
every other person in animal rescue says, if I just had a ranch, I would start my own rescue. So I'm just wondering about the logistics of starting your own rescue, like getting a 501c3. How do you do all that?
Funny that you mentioned that, because before I ever adopted my first rescue dog, I always dreamed of having a ranch and having a rescue. And I could just imagine, 100 dogs running around in the hills and being happy. And now that we kind of started it, that dream is being realized without the acreage, and more with this foster base setup. But we're still loving it every day. So the process has been quite daunting. It all really started with having this dream and having this passion to help animals and apply this disaster response side of things to it, and be there for the people and the animals alike. So with that being said, we came up with, our mission, and we sat down and, had a lot of help from Lynn Tingle with the Milo Foundation. She's been their founder and director, and she's been with them they just celebrated their 24th year anniversary, which is amazing. And she, really helped to guide us on how to get off the ground. And that started with mainly paperwork and money. That's been the two biggest things that really it took to get off the ground. We applied for our articles of incorporation, and went through that process. Once we had our articles of incorporation, we became technical employers, which is pretty crazy because we're 100% volunteer based. And then the 501c3 process began, and that was very, very time consuming and very daunting. And luckily we had the help of a local attorney, and they helped us to get everything put together and, official. And with that being said, we can take donations in the form of non-tax deductible donations, and we have a GoFundMe set up, and we are very straightforward about our tax deductibility status at the current. But we hope to have our official 501 completely up and running within the next month.
We always ask this question of our interview guests, and that is, if you had a magic wand, what do you think you would do to change the state of animal rescue?
I would probably wave it over, spay and neuter. Really, that's the biggest thing. It's being a rescue is secondary to the fact that people don't spay and neuter their animals, whether it's due to lack of information, education, cultural differences, lack of access. But really, I think waving the wand of, hey, we need to spay and neuter animals, especially animals that are in the shelter or low-income communities. They really need the help of everybody to step up and get them fixed.
We just want to say thank you to Ryan. You can find more information at maddogrescue.net or go to our show notes. Now we move on to Mr. Dusty Showers, resident of the greater Tampa, Florida area, and owner of Creepy Creatures Pest and Wildlife. He's done a lot for dogs, cats, and a variety of other animals. If you want to learn more about Dusty Showers, you can go to creepycreatures.net or our show notes. This is pawprint.com/141.
It's been an exhausting affair, I think, for everybody. But we are, especially in this part of Florida where we are, I'm on the West Coast in the Tampa Bay area, we really dodged a bullet. There were some people that had far worse damage than others, but I think overall we're doing okay. Especially the people in the Caribbean and more Central and East Florida that took the brunt of it. And, there were some people that lost everything, but for the most part, I think we got lucky, but there was clearly a disturbance with animal activity. So, that's what we're still focusing on right now.
How about the situation with power? Sounds like a lot of Florida went without power.
Yeah, we lost power. I think we were out for probably 4 days. It's funny. When you don't have power, it seems like forever. And then when you get it back, it's like, I don't even know how long we didn't have power. We can't complain. My parents had been traveling for a month and their house never lost power. So we just moved the family over there. So we're very grateful for that. But we had the dogs here, my dogs here, and then we fostered 4 cats for the Humane Society that had to evacuate. So, I was coming back 3-4 times a day and making sure that the animals were taken care of. So there are people that don't have power, and we literally see convoys of utility trucks from other states, and it's, gives you a chill when you see all these guys that came from different states. and how hard they're working to try to get power on for people. And, Houston, of course, got hammered, so these guys are out trying to make sure that everybody has their comforts in life, but also, in Florida, it's almost become a necessity, especially for the elderly and some other folks.
When we see from outside of Florida, we see everything from wind, rain, storm surges, flooding. What do you think really is the biggest threat to people in Florida?
With Irma coming in, the first reports were basically, you're all going to die. And, and then they backed it down from that. It was, the biggest Cat 5 hurricane ever coming. So, the wind is the scariest thing. But then they talk about the surge, and the news is necessary, but it's also sensational. And, the news guys love a good hurricane. And so you kind of have to decipher what's real, what's not real. And we're in a block house, so a block 2-story home. And so the bottom floor is cement. The walls are cement. And so, our strategy was we will sit in the downstairs during the brunt of the storm, but then they say it's the storm surge that is really the scary thing after that. So then after the storm, we just go upstairs and we can ride out the storm surge if there was any. Fortunately, we didn't have to worry about that. But, I don't know what's worse. The wind is scary, and when we were laying in bed just watching it through the back windows, and, it looks like the palm trees are just going to snap, but then the storm surge comes in and that just ruins everything. And if you're trapped somewhere, then it could, kill you. And it washes everything away, and animals included.
We're glad to know that you're alive and well with your family. So
thank you.
I'd say out of all of the guests that we've had on Paw Print, you probably have the most unique background. So why don't you share with us a little bit about your background with animals? It's not just about dogs and cats, but it's far more than that.
Wow. Yeah, I've got a weird background, I guess, but the short version is I was in college, high school All-American soccer player. Didn't really care much about the college thing except for parties and collecting animals. So early on, I got kicked out of the dorms because my new roommate was moving in, and one of my monitor lizards, which is a small cousin of the Komodo dragon, decided to run across the room as him and his mom were in the room. So that, coupled with a couple other animal incidents, the University of Northern Illinois said, we think it's best if you just move off campus, which was really a blessing, because then I was able to breed pythons and bring in chameleons and all sorts of snakes and lizards. And after my third year, I got a job in the Chicago suburbs, a summer job dealing with nuisance wildlife. And I was working 90 hours a week, and I absolutely loved it. And I said, this is what I want to do. I'm not going to go back to school. So I learned everything I could. I moved down to the Tampa Bay area, started my own business. This is a very archaic industry. So, the basic term is you're a trapper, and you trap raccoons in attics, you trap squirrels. If somebody will hire you, you'll go out and trap an animal, and you try to convince people that you have to be hired to trap their animals. And I always thought that was insane that people say, oh, I love animals, that's why I do this. And I just thought, well, if you love animals, then you don't want to go out and trap them. You want to resolve issues without trapping them. And so I took a different spin to that. And then everything kind of fell apart in my life with the economy crash and divorce. And that's where I accidentally found myself in the breast cancer community. And during a 3-day breast cancer walk, a bunch of women, basically forced me to wear a pink bra. I said, okay, I'll just do it once. And people loved it. And I was in such a low point in my life, and they thought I was really encouraging them to do this 60-mile walk when they really had no idea what they were doing for me. And, I was basically in tears every day, wondering how my life had dissolved. And so that became an important part of my life. And before I knew it, people were following me on MySpace, then Facebook, and they were sending me bras from all across the country, that, these women that have been touched by breast cancer. And then that parlayed into being on Oprah with Tim Gunn, and Tim Gunn, transformed me from this breast cancer bra wearing advocate into a dapper, person. And doing Red Bull events in a pink bra. I rode my bicycle across the country in a pink bra, which was, for an animal guy, was amazing. I had a crick in my neck because every day I would wake up and I was always looking to the right into the ditches looking for snakes. Like, oh, I got to be able to find some snakes. I'm going all the way across the country through the South. I would often get sidetracked just going and seeing stuff and chasing down animals. And so, things turned around. It's funny, I started a breast cancer charity. We give financial support to women with breast cancer. It's called The Second Baseman. But really the animal passion kind of took back over again. And I love the breast cancer community and everything that, my entire involvement there. But it's really animals that, when I go out and spend time, like on the weekend, that's what I want to do is working with animals. So, today I got a call for an injured owl. It sounds like it's probably a barred owl, and it's probably left over from Hurricane Irma. We've had a ton of baby squirrels, and then we've had birds and whatnot. So
thank you for all you do, because what you do is something that is different and not common, but is needed, especially in maybe in times like crisis, such as this, right?
It is definitely needed. And, there's people that do far more than I do. And, the important thing is people try to do what they can do because, there's so many issues that wildlife rehabilitators are just overwhelmed. And, and especially when it comes from ignorance of people. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but people just don't know any better. So, they might trap a raccoon and that raccoon turned out to have babies in somebody's attic. So then that trapper that didn't know any better now has to get those babies and says, what do I do with these babies? He takes them to a raccoon or to a rehabilitator, drops them off. And now she's stuck with 5 baby raccoons without a nursing mother. She's got to pay for that. The trapper says, well, they're not my raccoons, so I'm not going to pay for it. And so rehabilitators eat that. So, really when it comes down to it, it's great that people are out there rescuing animals, but at the heart of it are really the rehabbers and the people that actually take care of these animals. Catching it's one thing, but the care for them is really where it's at.
When it comes to wild animals, what's the most common question you get? What's the most, or maybe what's the most misunderstood part of wild animals that you tend to run into?
Yeah, it's funny. Possums are my favorite. Nature's little underdog. And, people will argue with me that, that they're vicious and don't, I can literally be holding one like a cat and somebody will say, well, yeah, but don't corner them. Like, why would cornering this animal be any different than holding the animal? And, people just love to argue about that. They're ugly, so I hate them. And is that really how you go through life? Something's ugly, so you hate it? And so people have this thing, and now on Facebook, we've got a coyote in the area that's got a very bad case of mange. And I've seen it before. And then somebody sent me something on Facebook saying, hey, can you help this coyote? So on one hand, I get calls from people saying, oh my God, there's a coyote in the neighborhood. We got to get rid of it. And then on the other hand, but if it's got mange, then we got to help it. So if it's healthy, we got to get rid of it. If it's got mange, we got to help it. And so, there's always this like a dichotomy of people that want to do this, they want to do that. If it's, we love to have alligators, but if there's an alligator in your backyard, we got to get rid of it. We can't have it. And honeybees are another one of those things. I'm creating a project to help honeybees in our area. And it's so funny. Everyone's like, oh, we love honeybees. We got to keep them. Okay. Hey, can I put a hive, on your property? Oh, no, I can't have those by me. So it's kind of the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. We got to have it, just not in my backyard.
I know since we last spoke to you, we spoke about the really touching story about Old Man Jenkins. Any stories that have inspired you, let's say in the past 12 months?
It's weird. I still get comments daily on the video on YouTube of him. And it's really pretty cool. So I think he'll always be an interesting part of my memories. What we're dealing with now is our Humane Society of Pinellas County. We've got rats everywhere. Like every place around here has rats, and so we've got rats, ants, and roaches. And so the Humane Society said, hey, we've got this issue. Our current pest control company can't handle it, and so they asked me if I would come in and give them an estimate. And that was literally the week that Irma was happening. And so we've got a hurricane coming in. They asked me to come in. And then while I'm there, they say, oh, hey, Dusty, by the way, do you want to take some cats? So they're just, I mean, it's a madhouse as they're trying to evacuate all these animals from the Humane Society because of this hurricane that's coming. And it's really amazing how they all came together to do this. So I took 4 cats and I looked around the property and, and I knew immediately, I said, I can't charge these guys for any of this. It's not a quote pest control job. It's just that these animals have to have proper care. And the Humane Society is doing everything that they can to provide proper care. But this is kind of out of their hands. So I came back to them and I said, I'd like to donate my services. We can get the rats under control. We can get the ants under control. And, you see the dogs are outside, so you've got ants in the dog food. I didn't see any, but, at some point they have to be crawling on the dogs and the dogs just deserve better than that. And so going in there, I swear I spent more time just sitting down and playing with the dogs than I did doing, of course I'm doing the work, but and I know some people at the Humane Society, so that, they know what I'm about, but these people are going to think I'm nuts. I'm just sitting down here, up against the cages, letting the dogs lick me. And, there's the dogs that as soon as they see you, they run to the far side of the cage, tail between their legs, which breaks your heart. And then there's the dogs that are just dying to be played with, which breaks your heart. So I thought, how am I going to be able to come in here on a consistent basis and see these dogs? It's going to break my heart. But, then I thought this is an amazing opportunity to, number one, make sure the dogs are being cared for, but then come in and play with them, because the more attention they get, the better they are, the better their psychology is. Because dogs that go into situations like that, often, they kind of become crazy, and then it becomes difficult to adopt them out. So that's a project that's really close to my heart right now, is making sure that's on our forefront. It is not the pest control of that, but making sure that we treat these dogs and cats with the respect that they deserve and give them the care that they deserve. And I'm hoping some great stories come from that, because part of that is that every time we go out there, I want to create a video that we can share that will help promote the adoption of these animals.
Right. I mean, it sounds like, going all the way back, over 10 years to Hurricane Katrina, where not only did a lot of people suffer, a lot of people perished, but a lot of animals perished. Sounds like with Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, we're more aware of how to maybe handle people and their animals. It could be everything from a shelter to a hotel, being more willing to accept animals. What do you think we need to do, or what do you think we can do to better improve not only people's lives but animals' lives in a disaster like a hurricane?
This was the first event that I saw people saying that shelters have to take pets. And so that was great. In the past, it was always, we have to evacuate, but we can't take our pets. So then these animals get left behind. And we still have somewhat of an issue. The day that Irma was supposed to hit, I stopped by a gas station to, I think I was just picking up my last candy bar, since I knew I wasn't going to be able to get anything for a while, because everything is just shut down. And I know that the woman that'd been working there, it's my neighborhood, she's always in there, and it was just her and me. And I said, hey, you getting through things okay? Because everyone's trying to prepare for, possible death. And here she is still working at a gas station because she has to. And so I said, I appreciate you being here. Are you getting through everything okay? And she said, well, no, I'm supposed to evacuate, and I have a cat, and I don't know what to do. And she started tearing up. And I asked her where she lived, which was over towards the water, and she's in a mobile home. And so is she going to leave her cat, or is she going to stay with her cat and possibly die? And those were basically her choices. So I gave her one of my cards and said that cat, we can take care of it. Here's my number. Call me, text me, let me know. We can help out with it. And I didn't hear back from her. So I went back about 3 hours later, and she wasn't there anymore. But I just thought that choice that she had to make, is it my cat, or am I going to face this thing? And coincidentally, I got a call from somebody else. So someone on Facebook said, hey, there's these 4 cats that are on this front porch. And it was a similar neighborhood in the same town, not far from the water. I said, "Oh my gosh!" And she showed me the pictures of these cats huddled, and the storm's supposed to hit at like 10 at night, and this was about 6 or 6:30. And so I said, "All right, I'll go check it out." And I it didn't go over well with the family when I said, "I'm going to go out and look for these cats." It didn't go over very well at all. But I went out, and the roads were empty. The winds were kicking up. It was raining, and the cats weren't. As soon as they saw me, they scattered. But that's an issue that I think is better. Conversely, the other challenge is that there are people that have allergies to pets. So you go to a shelter and then it's full of pets. You're allergic to them. And so then people have to live with that, sometimes for 3-4 days, maybe even longer. So it's a complicated thing, but with social media, we should be able to do a lot better to make sure that, we can care for as many animals as possible.
When it comes to disaster, it's going to be baby steps.
I think so, and it's what it is, though. It's a disaster, and we do everything that we can to manage it, and we don't always know. There's a boxer, Mike Tyson, I think, something about, making a plan and what happened to your plan. I got punched in the face or something like that, and everything, when you have your plan, it all breaks down when everything starts to happen or it doesn't happen like you think it's going to happen. So, we do the best that we can. But again, social media has become such a powerful tool that we really need to use that to reach out, even if it's, 10 people saying, "Hey, I can take one cat, I can take one dog," even if that dog has to be isolated for that short amount of time, it's going to take a lot of people to make that happen, but it's possible. And I think it's getting better, so then we have to sit and watch the wildlife, which is especially with Hurricane Harvey, it's heartbreaking seeing some of the wildlife things and the horses and the cows that are being drowned and, animals that are difficult to care for in times of disaster.
We're speaking to Dusty Showers, owner of Creepy Creatures Pest and Wildlife. I would imagine due to your job, you just get every kind of phone call and Facebook post and all that. When is an appropriate time to give a Dusty Showers a call? What are some things that you just it's just not in your hands?
It's hard to say. And I'd prefer people to call me if they have a question, like a lot of them start off with, "I'm not sure who to call." So I might not be the person to help you, but I typically have the resources to direct people. I'm not a rehabilitator, and so I can't really care for animals. And, there are people that are specialized in that, and there's some people that do general care wildlife. A friend of mine, she's an amazing rehabilitator. She's a popular realtor in the area. She's got a home tucked away in the woods, and you go in there, and there's 30 raccoons. You go on her back porch, and there's 30 more raccoons, and there's possums, and she's got vultures that hang out in her backyard and ducks running around. And, that's what she does is general wildlife. And it's really awesome. But I will often do the capture and the delivery. So if something is injured, it seems sick, or, shortly after we get off here, I'm going to go to pick up an owl that I got a call. Somebody said that it's injured of some sort. So I'm going to get that owl and deliver it to the Tampa Bay Raptor Rescue. I get it somewhere where it needs to be. A common thing is people see like rabbits and even squirrels, and they say, the mom's not around, we got to take care of it. And especially with rabbits, the moms don't necessarily hang out with the babies. So, they try to stay off the nest as to not attract predators. So most of the time when you find babies that seem to be orphaned, they're not really orphaned. The mom is somewhere around there. And that happens a lot with squirrels. Both squirrels and raccoons, the mothers are phenomenal mothers, but they're often somewhere around. So you really do have to make sure that the mothers are around, because you don't want to orphan something and then put that on a rehabilitator and have her have to take care of babies that could otherwise be taken care of by the mother.
How long should people wait? 30 minutes, an hour?
With rabbits, I would even wait a day. But, it really depends on the case. You just have to take a look at it. Squirrels are very vocal. So if you've got orphan squirrels, you can probably go out in the backyard and listen to see if there's any squirrels yelling at you. If not, pick up those babies, try to get those babies to squeak a little bit. Same with raccoons, blow in their face and they'll normally make some noise, and that can attract the mother. A mother raccoon is not going to come attack you if you have her babies. She might make herself known, but she's not going to come jump on your face. So, you can take those babies, you can blow in their face, see if the mother shows up. But, they do get hit by cars and things like that. So, it's always possible that they could die. But, if the babies seem to be cold, if they seem to be shivering, lethargic, dehydrated, you can pull their skin. And if their skin doesn't really go back into place, those are indications that it's time to go to a rehabilitator.
What's the best way to find Creepy Creatures Pest and Wildlife? You
can always find me at the website, creepycreatures.net, or on Facebook. I do most of my playing around on my personal Facebook page, which is Dusty Showers. You can join me on there. There's a Creepy Creatures Pest and Wildlife Facebook page, but I do most of my stuff on my personal page.
What is the most important thing folks can do for the animals in their community?
Be compassionate, figure out what that means, I guess, and be compassionate. So, if you know somebody that's involved in the wildlife community, if you're blessed with additional finances, ask them who you might be able to donate to. If you don't want to donate, if you want to donate time, there's so many places, whether it's rehabilitators, whether it's animal shelters, the Humane Society. In every community, there's also dog rescues that are smaller that people have no idea. So you can look at dog rescues, cat rescues. There's possum rescues. There's one of my close friends is even a hedgehog rehabilitator. So you go into her place, she's got anywhere from 13 to 20 hedgehogs. So, find out what's important to you personally and what kind of tugs at your heartstring, and, get involved with that somehow.
Dusty, I think you may have inspired a couple of listeners to look into wildlife rescue. So thanks for all that you do. Floor is yours. Anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Since 1990, I've been trapping wildlife like raccoons in attics and squirrels in attics especially. And we have a very archaic industry, and that's what every trapper across the country will do, except for a few exceptions. So you call them, you say, I've got a raccoon in my attic. They'll come out, they'll either set traps or they'll set up a one-way door. So then the mother comes out, she can't get back to her babies. Then the trapper, if he feels like it, will go into the attic, hopefully find the babies and maybe reunite them with the mother. In most states, it's illegal to transport raccoons or relocate them. So legally, they have to be killed. What a lot of people will say is, well, we humanely relocate them, both squirrels and raccoons. And that makes everybody feel better because it humanely relocates them, and then they can live in a much better place and be much more happy. But the studies really show that approximately 80% of relocated wildlife dies from the stress of being moved, having to find new food and water, having to find shelter, all the other animals that live there already that want to kill this new invader. So I said, there's got to be a way. And I call it nudging. And I've got a couple videos up on YouTube of raccoons in attics and squirrels in attics. And it really looks quite silly and unprofessional, which I fully acknowledge, but it works 100% of the time. And what it does is it makes the environment uncomfortable enough that the raccoons or squirrels will take their babies, move out of the attic. They still get to live in the same environment. So they don't have to look for food. They don't have to look for water. They don't have to compete with other animals that are wondering what this new person is doing in there. And yes, they do have to find new shelter, but it's better than the alternative. So I'm really trying to show people that there is no such thing as humane relocation. It doesn't exist. It's something that just makes us feel good, but relocation is quite cruel. So when if you have an issue with an animal in your attic, look at these methods before you look at trapping them or excluding them. And trappers will tell you that excluding them or a one-way door, it works great. The raccoon gets out, it can't get back in, and you just get the babies. And then they call me up and they're like, hey, I saw what you're doing. Can you tell me more about it? And then they tell me that they exclude them. And I say, well, doesn't the mother ever tear up the house trying to get back in? And they go, well, yeah, they do. Okay, but they don't say that publicly. but they'll tell you that that's one of the issues, because if you separate a mother raccoon from her babies, she's going to do everything she can to try to get back to them. Trappers out there, there's a strong hunting mentality, and I'm not against hunting. I don't care to do it myself, but I'm not against it. But so many people in the industry are hunters, so they don't see an issue with catching as many animals as they can, regardless of if they're the problem animal or not, and then sticking them in the back of their truck in a trap. Maybe they stay there for 3 or 4 days until they die. And it's very inhumane. So, the first thing that we try to do is when somebody calls us and tells us they have a problem is we try to talk them out of it. Is this really a problem? And have you tried other alternatives? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Where most of the other trappers are going to be like, oh yeah, you got to get rid of that animal, and there's probably more, and we'll just set a whole bunch of traps, and we'll catch all the raccoons, we'll catch all the possums. Meanwhile, it's $75 an animal. And so they're getting rich off the backs of these animals. And I always thought, if you're in this business, it's not something that you should expect to get rich off the backs of these animals. So, there's cases where you have to be paid for your services, but I think you need to explore all the other options before you exploit, the animal situation and take advantage of people too, because they don't know any better.
We just want to say thank you to Dusty Showers for sharing his story. We also want to say thank you to Ryan Darfler, helping transport lots of incredible animals out of Houston to hopefully better lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you want to learn more about Mad Dog Rescue or Creepy Creatures Pest and Wildlife, find it on our show notes at thisispawprint.com/141. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on your favorite podcast player, such as Apple Podcasts. Search for Paw Print Animal Rescue, and make sure to hit the subscribe button to get the latest episodes immediately. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for This Is Paw Print, all one word. All the music you hear on Paw Print is composed, produced, and performed by the amazing Luke Gartner-Brereton. Find him at info.vanillagroovemedia.com. Join us for our next episode with Bergen Verdu. She worked with Ryan Darfler, and she has a perspective that you won't want to miss. We just want to say thank you to all of you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. We've now been listened to in over 130 countries and territories, and we couldn't have done it without your support, so thank you. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.